Hi, my name's Clare Murray and I'm Managing Partner of Specialist Employment and Partnership Law firm CM Murray. And I'm joined today by my partner and our in-house counsel, Beth Hale. And we're going to talk about some of the lessons and themes coming through from Sue Gray's investigation report, or at least her general findings. Beth, so what are your initial thoughts on the report and the implications for employers generally?
So I would say what I was really surprised by, actually, I think we were all waiting for the report with kind of bated breath, weren't we? We were all on tenterhooks, but I was not expecting really it to have general lessons for employers to learn. And I think actually there were quite a few, and I think the report includes quite a lot of comments and recommendations in respect of how a business is run. And I think that's not something that I would have necessarily anticipated coming out of this.
So what are some of the big lessons that employers and firms can take away from, I guess, the whole experience and the general findings from Sue Gray?
Yeah, so I think there are a number of themes coming through. One is the importance of really positive leadership and leaders following the rules that they set, understanding and following the rules that they set. And obviously that applies in a massive national way here, but it also applies to any organisation and the sort of leaders leading by example in terms of what they, the policies and procedures they put in place and following those themselves. I think there are some lessons around speaking up, allowing people and making clear to people what reporting lines are and whistleblowing, which I think we can talk about in a bit more detail. Mm-hmm. And then there are issues around alcohol consumption and what that should or shouldn't look like in the workplace and how employers might manage that. And another thing that comes out of it is the real importance of ensuring that you maintain accountability and really solid infrastructure in a growing organisation. So one of the things that Sue Gray talks about is how rapidly the 10 Downing Street sort of infrastructure has grown over the last few years and how the importance of just maintaining culture in that kind of rapidly growing organisation.
Okay, so let's just very briefly unpack some of those key issues and I guess practical steps that employers and firms might take to address them positively in their organisations. So, firstly, that leaders themselves have to comply with the rules just like everybody else.
So I think it shouldn't come as news to leaders and managers in organisations that if they are setting rules for the rest of their staff, they have to comply with those rules and they have to sort of live by those values. I think what we often see, particularly in professional services firms, is that policies and procedures might not apply to all partners, or in other firms, in other organisations, policies might not apply to management. But I think it's really important to have in place. They might be slightly different because of the sort of nature of the organisation, but policies and procedures which sort of mirror those in place for staff to ensure that everybody has that framework within which to work. I think that's really important. And then I think just the sort of basics of, if you have an organisation, you have some value, you have a sort of set of values by which your organisation kind of lives and breathes. And as management, you have to live and breathe those values as well. It's just absolutely important, absolutely vital for an effective organisation and to create the right kind of culture within your company or organisation.
And presumably you reinforce those policies with training and monitoring and enforcement to make sure that it's a completely joined up approach.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Other things that some of the other big issues that came out were obviously about having clear accountabilities and clear infrastructure. Is there anything practically for employees to think about in that regard?
One of the issues that really came out here was that the sort of machine at number 10 had grown really rapidly over a number of years, and in that time, in that growth, they had not sort of put in place adequate policies and procedures, adequate infrastructure for an organisation as big as it now is. And I think that's a real lesson to learn for other organisations which are growing fast, which are in real growth mode, that you can't assume that all the same infrastructure, all the same procedures, all the same process will apply as you get bigger. So you have to preempt that, have your policies and procedures in place ready for when your organisation grows, rather than reacting to that growth.
And following on from that, the issue about developing a speak-up culture where people feel comfortable raising issues and know how and where to do it.
Yeah, so I think that, part of that stems from the stuff we've already talked about around leadership and values. But I think just so important that people know where to report, they know who to report to. There is if not a sort of formal whistleblowing champion, which a lot of organisations do have, and it's a really good idea, I think, but someone obvious, those reporting lines should be clear, and everyone should understand where they are, and they should be set out in a policy, but not just a policy which sits in a handbook and rots away on a shelf, but in a policy which is sort of implemented and trained. Everyone's trained on it, and it's rolled out, and everyone knows where it is and what to do. And I think just that real, again, leading from the front, leading from the top, encouraging people to call out misconduct when they see it, to call out things that are going wrong, and again, leading by example, admitting when you've made mistakes, admitting when things have gone wrong, and learning from those mistakes.
And equally, knowing that if you do raise issues, concerns, that they won't result in retaliation of any form, feeling comfortable.
Absolutely, that real zero tolerance to any retaliation, and making it absolutely clear that that whistleblowing, that speaking up when you see something that you think is not right, that is a positive rather than a negative, and that zero tolerance to retaliation is absolutely vital.
And I think we do often see in practice that often the retaliation can be more significant, more harmful than the original complaint.
Absolutely.
Because of a lack of understanding within the organisation of the importance of preventing any retaliation. And finally, what sort of lessons can employers and firms learn in terms of the observation around avoiding excess alcohol at work events and on premises, work premises?
Just really important to say that so much of the work that we do, and the sort of workplace disputes and workplace issues that we see, arise in scenarios where alcohol has been consumed by one or both parties involved. And I think there is a real sort of culture shift there, that organisations are starting to put in place policies which manage alcohol consumption without trying to sort of, ruin everyone's fun. But just acknowledging that there is that it can be problematic when there is excess of alcohol consumed, and things like putting limits on bar tabs, things like that, is a really appropriate way to manage that, and to sort of approach that with staff. I think the other thing is ensuring that people in management positions, people at the top of organisations, shouldn't be there, shouldn't be the drunkest at the party. They should, they need to remember that it's a workplace, and that even if it's in a bar, even if it's in a club, even if it's somewhere outside of the actual workplace, if it's a work event, it's still work, and you should behave accordingly.
Thanks so much, Beth. I hope you found those insights helpful. If you'd like to discuss any other workplace-related issues that arise out of similar issues to those being faced by 10 Downing Street and Whitehall in this investigation, please do get in touch. We'd be very pleased to discuss these with you and see what practical steps can be taken, both in terms of response, but also in terms of prevention. And prevention is, I think, the most important thing in these issues. Employers and firms can do a lot to help themselves up front. So thanks again. I hope you enjoyed this, and hopefully see you again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.